Have you ever thought about how often people make mistakes? This statement is especially true when it comes to nature. For example, humanity thinks it knows how the world works and that we have studied it thoroughly. But what if this is not the case? For instance, have you ever heard of the Kashmir musk deer? In 1948, it was officially considered extinct, but in 1949, it turned out that it wasn't. Or does the name Ganges shark ring a bell? If not, it's not a big deal because it was considered extinct for over 100 years, but in 2019, it was found at an Indonesian fish market. And what do you know about the Tasmanian tiger? Officially, this large predator has been considered extinct since 1936. However, in 1982, fresh traces of this beast were found, and since then, reports of its sightings have been coming from different parts of Tasmania, although it is still officially considered an extinct species. What do you think? Do people know anything about our world? Personally, I am convinced that, as much as we would like to believe that people know and control everything, in reality, we know nothing about the world we live in. My story began in front of a computer monitor on one of the forums dedicated to hiking in interesting and remote places. There, I met a user with the nickname Fluid. I was intrigued by his posts and photos from places that seemed untouched by civilization and consequently devoid of tourist crowds. After several months, we became as close as possible through internet correspondence. That's why, when one evening he suggested a joint hike, I gladly agreed, especially since Fluid proposed making the mountains called Spitze in the Carpathians our final destination, a place I had long wanted to see in person. We also decided not to go alone, as the route planned by Fluid was quite challenging, long and dangerous, requiring many days of preparation. Thus, we decided to act as follows. He would invite someone he deemed suitable for such a journey, and I would do the same. So in the end, we gathered a team of 4 people: me, my friend Andri, Fluid, and his friend Anton. As it turned out later, Fluid's real name was Dimitro, a simple and very common name in our area. That's why he chose such an interesting nickname. The start of our journey was in early spring. Although the nights were still quite cold at this time of year, the daytime temperatures were very comfortable, perfect for hiking. We arrived at the starting point of our route by bus. It was in this small town that our company met in person for the first time. Fluid immediately handed each of us a radio and conducted a safety briefing. Our planned path was 105 kilometers long, which we were supposed to cover in a week. The first day turned out to be the easiest. We walked through plains and forests, with nature smelling of fresh grass, wildflowers, and the wind. We talked a lot, got to know each other better, and shared our life stories. In the evening, we set up camp, made a fire, cooked delicious porridge, and continued telling stories, but now of a slightly different nature. We told mysterious, scary stories to add a bit of spice to the evening, and everyone shared made-up or internet-heard creepypastas. When it was Fluid's turn, he paused for a long time, threw some wood into the fire, and began his tale. From ancient times, the Carpathian forests and the lands adjacent to them were shrouded in mystery and fear, as people often disappeared here, and many spoke of encounters with strange creatures. Some described them as blurry shadows with beastly contours hiding among the trees. Others spoke of giant wolf-like creatures that lurked in the night. Recently, a group of tourists disappeared in this area. No bodies or clothes were found, only torn tents, backpacks, and bloodstains. The forester who reported this said he thought he saw silhouettes of some beasts hiding deep in the forest. He told everyone he saw werewolves. When Dimitro finished his story, everyone remained silent for a while. Then he added that one of the reasons he wanted to go there was this story. What if it was true, and he could see these creatures with his own eyes or even capture them on camera? "You're really something," said Anton. "The story is just fire. I didn't expect to actually get scared." We and Andri were also tense from this story. Dimitro stayed silent for a bit longer. Then we wished each other a good night and went to our tents. After a long, intense day, I immediately fell asleep, although I woke up several times from the sound of someone walking around the camp all night. Waking up in not the best mood, we noticed that the food we left by the fire was gone. Quickly having breakfast, we packed up and continued on our route. Unlike the first day, the second day was not as joyful. It started to rain and a fog appeared, making it damp and cold. Our shoes got wet and uncomfortable. We walked in silence, each lost in our own thoughts, and from time to time we stopped for a break. During one of these stops, Andrew went to the bathroom, disappearing quickly into the thick grass due to the dense fog. Even though we couldn't see him, we could hear him walking back and forth through the grass, unable to settle. We and Dmitro laughed at his pickiness. When he returned, we were still laughing. Andrew thought we were joking and making noise around him. We stopped laughing and assured him it wasn't us, but each of us remained in our own thoughts and continued our journey. The late spring evening was cold, the drizzle continued, and we were so exhausted that after stopping and setting up our tents, we could barely make a fire to warm up. Having a quick meal with protein bars, we crawled into our tents and almost instantly fell asleep. Late at night, I heard someone walking around the camp again, very loudly this time. It seemed strange that this someone wasn't using a flashlight. So I took the radio and contacted the guys. First, Dmitro responded, then Anton. I thought that Andrew was walking around the camp and not responding on the radio. Then Andrew responded. At that moment, I felt a chill on my skin, my breathing quickened, and cold sweat appeared on my forehead. Probably everyone else felt something similar because we all remained silent. Pulling myself together, I quietly whispered into the radio for no one to come out until morning. I don't know if it was fear or an excess of emotions, but I passed out and slept until morning. Waking up, I quietly peeked out of the tent and saw that there was no one outside. However, like the last time, all our things and food were scattered and torn. When we gathered by the fire, we started thinking about what to do next. It was clear that, given the circumstances, we needed to end the hike and return to civilization as quickly as possible. After piecing together all the facts and realizing that this pursuit had started on the first night, we got even more scared. Only Dmitro smiled. Though he was also scared, he hoped to capture whoever was following us on camera. Quickly packing up, we headed back to civilization. We picked up the pace, but even so, the journey could take at least 2 days. Adding to that, the weather continued to be wet and gloomy. Every time we climbed a small hill or came out into an open area, we checked for a mobile signal, but it never appeared. Walking at this pace all the time, we realized that it was getting dark. It was clear that walking at night was not an option, but setting up camp with a fire and unreliable tents was also not wise. So we decided to climb a tall, sprawling tree, tie ourselves with ropes, and spend the night like that. That's what we did. We found a tall tree with many sturdy branches, climbed it together, and just as we started tying ourselves to the tree, a heavy rain began. Sitting on the tree, wet, hungry, tired, and scared, we wanted just one thing, for it all to end. To avoid despair, we started talking to each other, sharing thoughts about what might have come to our camp. There hadn't been bears in this area for a long time, and wolves couldn't have made those sounds. It was definitely something heavy. We even speculated that it might have been people, but quickly dismissed this version. When it got completely dark, we heard the sound of breaking branches, first somewhere far away, then closer and closer to us. Due to the darkness, it was hard to see, but we could definitely make out a silhouette, large, too large, and unlike anything we had seen before. Saying we were scared is an understatement. I felt it becoming hard to breathe. Even if I wanted to scream, I couldn't because I lost my voice and my hands froze. I wanted to merge with the tree, become one with it. The crackling of branches on the ground grew louder. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The silhouette came closer, and we could hear it sniffing, deeply inhaling through its nostrils. It was definitely following our trail. My eyes, accustomed to the darkness, began to make out the features of this creature. Large, on all fours, with massive front limbs, standing on all fours, it was as tall as an adult human, with a strong, stocky body. It seemed to be something between a bear and a wolf. It's hard to say now, but then it seemed very massive, breaking small trees in its path, accompanied by a constant crackling of branches. I remember thinking how such a large creature had been following us silently for so long. It was clearly hunting its prey, and now it was sniffing the smell of victory. It probably liked to play with its victims otherwise. It's hard to explain everything that happened to us before. It might have been smarter than it seemed, but hiding in a tree was a good idea. Oh, you can't imagine how happy I was that we did just that. The creature had been walking under us for a while, sniffing but couldn't figure out where we were. And then I noticed something incredibly stupid. How Ditro was trying to get his camera out of his backpack. All my insides, my expressions, and gestures tried to show him that it was a terrible idea. But he didn't pay attention to me and tried to take a photo. At that moment, the creature was walking right under our tree, so to take a photo, Ditro untied himself and leaned down. Because of the rain, the branches became slippery, and he began to slide down, grabbing the branch at the last moment. The camera fell, attracting the beast's attention. The height at which our friend hung was about 7 meters, so the creature couldn't reach him, though it really wanted to. The sounds it started making were incredibly eerie and frightening, rough, causing the tree trunk to vibrate. I wanted to scream or help Ditro, but fear paralyzed me. Anton was the first to act. He also untied himself from the tree and leaned down to give his hand to the unfortunate man. However, the trunk and branches were so slippery from the rain that they both slid down. I couldn't believe it was happening, or maybe I just didn't want to. I just closed my eyes to avoid seeing this horror, but I continued to hear the sounds first, my friend's short screams, then the dull sound of falling, and then I heard what will haunt me in nightmares for the rest of my life. I heard the beast attacking them, tearing them apart, and their screams. I never want to hear such screams again as I did then. Then everything went silent, and only the sound of something devouring its prey could be heard below, those who were just recently with us. By morning, the rain stopped, and soon the creature itself disappeared. I don't know if it was full or just lost interest in us, but it was neither under the tree nor anywhere nearby. Henry and I were afraid to climb down for a while, but then common sense and the desire to get out of this place made us descend. Below, we found only bloodstains and the broken camera, which I took with me. Despite the shock and fatigue, fear and adrenaline helped us almost run the rest of the way to civilization. When we reached the city, we cried like little children. I remember the mixed feelings of joy that we were saved, the pain of losing our friends, and the fear of the unknown and primal thing we encountered. Of course, we immediately went to the police, where we briefly described that we were attacked by some beast, without going into some details so that no one thought we were crazy. The police and rescue service found nothing. Neither our friends nor any other traces. They interrogated us and let us go. At home, I reviewed the photos taken on Ditro's camera and was horrified. I realized that what we encountered was a beast, but not an ordinary one that has been considered extinct for thousands of years. Otherwise, it's impossible to explain it. Comparing the photo taken by Ditro with skeletons and bones presented on the internet, I concluded that it might have been an amphibian, a terrifying ancient predator. What else do we consider extinct or vanished? What else could still exist somewhere in dark forests, the depths of the seas, and hidden caves? The thought of this terrifies me immensely.